Respect it, I mean, we network across the globe, cause it's a global market in case you didn't know. And since we all about information flow, let me be the first one to welcome you to Tech Zone with Paul Amadeus Lane. Let's talk tech, cause technology changing the game. It's all good in the hood, it's everywhere. Now let's get to the show, cause we live on air, yeah.
Welcome back. Second segment of the Tech Zone. Paul Amadeus Lane. Sean, should I continue to say I'm the czar of technology? Just nod once. Sean is our great engineer back at home base, came at 1490 ABC News Radio. Sean is the czar of Elders of the Lost Scroll. Sean, did you hear about the new game coming out? I know you did. If you missed the interview with Gary Shapiro, President and CEO of the Consumer Technology Association, you can always check it out on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, here at the podcast. It came in 1490 ABC News Radio, and enjoyed his take on President Trump's immigration executive order. So if you missed that, definitely check it out. All month long in February, we're going to talk about diversity in tech. And I have come across some great individuals when it comes to tech, no matter what race, what color they are, great individuals, really smart ones out there. And over the past year, I've interviewed my next guest, Samara Lynn, tech editor over at Black Enterprise and magazine. And Samara, she's one of the smartest people I've ever known, and I wanted to have her back. So without any further delay, well, joining me right now is the tech editor over at Black Enterprise magazine, my great friend Samara Lynn. How you doing, Samara?
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I am doing amazing, my friend. Great to talk to you.
You too. Great to talk to you as always.
Yeah, no, the last time we saw each other was at CES 2017, and you were going this way, I was going that way. We had to get some assignments done, deadlines done, so we really didn't get a chance to connect. And but I wanted to definitely talk to you this month because we know February being Black History Month, and what I'd like to do is talk about just the diversity in tech, and then also just talk about your journey and to what brought you to where you are today. So Samara, let's talk about your journey of what led to where you are today, being a tech editor over at Black Enterprise magazine.
Oh, sure. Well, I've only been in journalism for about a decade. But for 15 years, I was an IT professional, and I was a network engineer, network administrator. And what that meant was, I set up servers and clients and made sure everything talked. I dealt with a lot of cabling and wires, and I loved it. But back then, this is like, we're talking about the mid to late 90s, there was no talk of diversity inclusion. There was nothing like Girls Who Code, or there were no employee resource groups, at least not where I worked at the time. So it was a pretty lonely spot being a Black woman in IT, especially in my 20s. I mostly worked with men. I would say in 99% of the times, white men. And I think I had told you, Paul, there was a time when my first job, I was just in my 20s, just got my Microsoft certification, raring to go. I was supposed to do something with our email server, and I made a mistake, and I think I ended up deleting like thousands of emails. And of course, I got called in by our department director, and I owned up to it. I said, it was a mistake. It won't happen again. I learned from it. And one of my colleagues, a white gentleman, kind of looked at me, kind of half joking, half hostile, said, your biggest mistake was waking up and coming to work today. So, wow. And of course, there was nothing done about that. It's just something that I had to deal with as I went through my career, those type of snide remarks.
And Samara, you're a big Star Wars fan like me. Don't you wish you could have force choked him at that time and say you had failed me?
Darth Vader thing right around his neck.
Say you had failed me.
That would have been sweet.
Yeah, so you had failed me for the last time. And Samara, it's hard for people to really understand what a person goes through, especially a woman and a woman of color, especially if they have never went through any discrimination in their life. And when you bring it up, they're like, well, I never seen that before. But unless you lived it, you can really see what goes on. And Samara, see, that's why you're so smart. See, I had no idea you were a network engineer and everything. So, wow, no wonder you're brilliant.
And by smart, you mean like nerdy.
Well, being a nerd is cool now, right? So we're cool being nerds. Back in the days,
right.
Nerds had a kind of a negative connotation, but not now, girl. We cool.
Not anymore.
We cool.
Not anymore.
So looking at that experience right there, how did it mold you to kind of deal with any other kind of adversities that you had being a woman of color, especially when it comes to the technology field?
I would say definitely. It made me realize that no matter what challenges that come across, if you're good at what you do, if do your homework, really, are up on your skill set, no one really can say anything to you. I mean, because at the end of the day, when they needed someone to, implement a new server, to scale up our network, to fix a problem, I got the job done. And that was without any really support or encouragement, targeted to women or minorities. So, I think it's so good now that we have all these resources, like Black Girls Code, and we have these, African American resource groups in companies. The bottom line is you really have to build up enough, I guess, of a skin, of a shell, where that, despite any sort of support system, adversity will come your way, sooner or later, and you just have to be confident.
And Samara, when we look at the different organizations out there that kind of advocate for ones who really don't have a big voice in the field, what do you say to critics out there who say, well, when you have organizations like that, you're really not teaching inclusion, that you're teaching like separate and not coming together. What would you say to critics of that?
Well, I think and that goes across technology or any other area. I mean, as African Americans, I mean, if you look at, this, I love it's Black History Month. If you look at, our history and so much, like Jim Crow and segregation, that wasn't that long ago. I mean, we're talking, there was news about Emmett Till, how the woman who her testimony resulted in Emmett Till's murderers getting acquitted. She came out now in an article in Vanity Fair saying that she had lied for a lot of her testimony, and that resulted in this child's murderers being let free. That was only, I mean, and I posted to social media. My father, who's not that old, was only 6 years old when Emmett Till was murdered. So we have a lot of catching up to do. So rather than people saying, well, if you have the Black Film Awards, why can't we have White Film Awards? Well, you could, but that's not really the point. The point is really to give Black people, the resources and the support network so that we can play catch up over the last 100 years. Slavery was not that long ago.
That's true.
So
that's true.
That's what I would say to those critics. It's not that we're trying to divide. We're just trying to survive.
Absolutely. And I always like to tell people too, when we were created, God did not intend for the races to be separate. It was man who decided to separate people. You go over there, you go over there. We were all created on an equal playing field. And a lot of people can't wrap their minds around it. It's like, we just didn't wake up one morning and say, we Black people. No, we were created like white people were created, Black people were created, Latinos were created. We were created by the Creator, God Himself. So, and what cracks me up is like ones out there who are quote unquote evangelicals who talk about God this and God that, but they believe in segregation. They believe in separating the races. And I love having conversation with them and say, well, who created us then? God created us. So if you love God, you love us too. We love each other. And a lot of people can't wrap their minds around that, Samara. And I think it's just the noise out there of just people believing things that other people believe who support their thoughts instead of coming into a different mindset. Like,
exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just really unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And like you said, Paul, it's just a lot of noise, especially now, because making a lot of noise and rattling the saber and getting angry seems to be kind of the style now, in the style of our new president. So I think it's going to get a lot noisier and a lot worse.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's like, when are the grown-ups gonna step up? You know what I mean? And it's okay to disagree on a lot of things, disagree on a lot of points, but it's the way you do it. It's the respect that you have for one another. And again, in this nation, there's a lot of talk about one nation under God. If that's the case, act God-like, act Christ-like, act like He wants us to act, with dignity and respect for everybody, not not a
Yeah.
lot of this, putting people down. And Samara, when we look at what's happening in the tech industry, and again, I'm forever in your debt. I'm so glad that our paths crossed several years ago when I had you on a morning show I used to host, when I had you on, because
Oh.
you are the queen of Wi-Fi, and I'm glad I had you on. We talked about it. And then
Oh.
I
It was an honor.
it was awesome. And then we connected years later. But I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of the Black Enterprise Tech Connect, because what that showed was diversity in tech, and a lot of people out there just don't realize the value of STEM education. I was talking to Gary Shapiro, President and CEO of CES, before I talked to you, and I asked Gary this about STEM education. How does he feel about the new president and his mindset as far as technology is concerned? Will he put the money behind STEM education? So, in kindergarten, in preschool, in middle school and high school, will he invest in STEM education? Because let's face it, all those jobs that were lost in the Rust Belt, they're going to be replaced by robotics. I mean, we were part of a conference where the guy who's responsible for building the robotics came out and said, companies are hiring me to take your jobs away. So you need to make sure that you learn about robotics. And what's your take on that? Do you feel that the administration could do more to be honest with people and say, if you want a job, you better learn STEM education?
Well, this is what makes me so crazy. And this is something I cover quite extensively with the Black Enterprise. If you take a look at the last, 5 modern presidents in modern history, President Obama will probably go down in history as the most pro-tech, pro-tech president with a lot of foresight about the future. And that's why he invested so much time and part of the budget in creating all these programs to re-educate people in STEM skills, especially young people. He had My Brother's Keeper, he had Tech Hire, he had just all these programs. If you go to his archive site, you can see all these programs he did, just trying to get people up on STEM and to get them re-educated somewhat, because it has nothing to do with who the president is. It's technology. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they're voting for Trump thinking that somehow he's going to be able to stop this flow of automation and tech advancement. And I got news for them. He's not going to be able to. So I so agree. STEM education it's not just really, it's critical. It needs to happen at grade school.
That's so true.
To me, it's as critical as reading and writing at this point.
I mean, it is, because Samara, if you look at even, I believe at the Tech Connect, I remember one of the gentlemen who was on one of the panels, he talked about how there is a McDonald's in Arizona that's all automated. And remember, when we graduated from high school, we can go run and get a job at Mickey D's. But now, you got to have some certifications to do that. And I really think that in this country, I think this is where we're missing the boat when it comes to education. I mean, you look over in overseas, and maybe even look at some of the countries that were on this immigration ban that the president put out. The children over there, I think they are more advanced in STEM education probably, than we are. I'm going out on a limb on that, but I think they're embracing technology more than we do. And one other thing that I asked too, and I asked you this and get your objective criticism on it, as a tech writer and tech editor, since this president seems not to really embrace technology, it seems, what do you think this effect is going to have on technology? You think he's going to maybe talk against it? Because even by his own admission, he doesn't really like to email. He loves to tweet, but when it comes to other things, do you think he's going to be like President Obama was, to really be an advocate or someone who is really going to talk of tech in the world?
Paul, objectively, quite honestly, I don't think President Trump is going to hinder tech progress that much. And here's why: because at the end of the day, he's a businessman, and he understands business needs, and he understands, that's his community. Those are his people, and right now he's putting on the show for his base of, being tough on Silicon Valley and tough against progressive values. But I really do think in some way that's sort of smoke and mirrors. And I think he knows in his heart that, the real movers and shakers of this country are your Tim Cooks, your Intel CEO, all those guys in Silicon Valley, these startups, the CEO of Uber. They're the ones. They're going to have they're going to have Trump's ear, and I think he's going to have to relent on perhaps a lot of the things he might be proposing just to keep his base happy. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I kind of
yeah.
I kind of echo your sentiments too. I think when it gets
Mhm.
down to it, he realizes that technology is the way to go. And
Yeah.
you can't stop if you want to be relevant in the world. So when you
Yeah.
decided to take the jump from being in IT to being in journalism, what was kind of the nudge that got you to do it? Because working in the nuts and bolts of networking now to writing about it and talking about technology, what kind of led you over there? Was it kind of like something you always wanted to do to express yourself, or walk us through that?
Well, since I was a kid, my goal was I was going to be a playwright. That's what I was, just creative. I was a writer. I was a poet. I didn't want to hear anything else. And then the sci-fi geek bug hit me when I was a kid. So I always had these two loves. I loved computers, and I always loved the creative arts, via writing. So I remember when I finished my tenure, I had reached pretty much the pinnacle of my career. I became an IT director. And I thought, okay, what can I do now? I'm going to try to be a CIO. I'm not really a real corporate person. I'm a little bit more free spirited type. So I started freelancing for. I got the opportunity to freelance for someone. I wrote a couple of articles on Linux, and he was just like, "These are great. Can you do more?" And it kind of became a side gig, and I was making good money at it. And I said, "Huh, I wonder if people actually do this for a living." And I'm thinking, well, listen, you read PC Magazine and you read, Computer World and a Network World, and of course people do this for a living. So I did a little research, figured out how to get into that, and then just, applied and, showed them I was a freelancer, and I got my first job. So my first full-time writing job, and that was 10 years ago. And for some reason, they keep hiring me.
Awesome.
So,
You know why to keep hiring? Because you're great at what you do, and it's like my, what pushed me off into broadcast journalism. It was when I was in high school, I did ROP, radio and television production. But then when I got out of school, I was in the music production. But then when I had my accident back in '93, I said, well, what can I do? Well, after many years of watching Montel Williams and Jenny Jones and Richard Bay, I was like, well, I need to do something. I said, what can I do? Because I can't lift nothing up, can't do nothing laborious. I said, you know what? I have a big mouth, and my cousin said I had the gift of gab. So that's what kind of got me into broadcast journalism. And that's why I said you never really know when you go through things in life where your path leads you to and the people that you
you
meet.
don't,
Because
you
if
don't.
I never thought I had the gift of gab, you and I never would have met. You never would have helped me out with my
Right.
Wi-Fi. We never would have passed our paths would have crossed, and we would have been able to develop this friendship and this relationship over tech. So
Absolutely.
it's
Yep.
amazing how things happen, isn't it?
It is, and I think, and I know you're such an authentic, real person, and you just have this energy that just about you when you meet you when you're in person. And I think when you stay true to that authentic self, you kind of find your way naturally. Things just kind of evolve. So
Absolutely.
because you're so open minded.
Absolutely, and I want to go back to what you said. You being a poet, were you an MC when you were growing up too? You wrote some rhymes and everything.
No, I was like one of those corny, flowery
Oh, okay.
poets. And then I was also one of those political protesty poets.
Got
So
you,
it depended on my mood.
got you. One thing I like about you, Samara, you are a firecracker, but you are fair. You are balanced. You speak
Thanks.
you speak the truth. When you can agree with something, you do, and when you don't, you speak out about it. And that's one thing I really appreciate about you and how real you are. So, what kind of advice can you give
Thanks.
to women out there and also women of color when it comes to, let's say, getting into the tech world? What kind of advice would you give them?
I would say absolutely. Please take advantage of all the resources you can. It was tougher for me because I didn't have that. When I was coming up. If you want to be a programmer, don't think, oh, I can never do it. I didn't go to school. Look around, try to find courses. There's so many organizations of now. Go to Black Women of Color in Computing. They can put you in the right direction. Take advantage as much as you can, and don't set yourself up thinking, well, I want to be, I have to have a startup and I have to get into a, funding and an accelerator program. Just find your thing. Find what you enjoy doing. Do you like, do you want to have a business? Do you want to code? Do you want to just, game? Find your experiment with different things. But I would say my big advice is definitely take advantage of the resources.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Samara is a gamer too. She's a gamer.
I am, yes.
Yes, we both are. And Samara, as always, my friend, it's always great to catch up with you, to talk with you. And I talked to Samara about this before we came on air. I said we got to do a Facebook Live together. So I tell you what, be on the lookout. Samara and we're gonna do a Facebook Live one day. And I'm telling you, it's going to be off the charts. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about technology. And like I said, hit up Samara on Facebook and Twitter, because I'm telling you, she is the queen of Wi-Fi. And I say that with everything, because she helped me out with my Wi-Fi. And that's how she and I got hooked up. I saw a YouTube of her talking about Wi-Fi. And I was like, I got to talk to her. And she helped me out. So Samara, how can ones connect with you, my friend?
You too, Paul. Thank you. And we're going to talk about Tech Connects coming up soon, or 2017 soon.
Absolutely. So how can ones get in contact with you, Samara?
All right.
Yeah, Samara, so how can ones get in contact with you?
Oh, so you can contact me. Actually, the best way you mentioned, Twitter, Samara Lynn, all one word, or you can Facebook message me too. I'm always on social media, so I'm easy to find.
Yes, I'm looking forward to Tech Connects coming up this year too. It's gonna be off the chain. It's gonna blow up. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And can you imagine the discussions we're gonna have about policy and everything coming up this time? It's must see. So everybody, make sure follow me on Twitter too, because whenever the dates are released, I'll be tweeting it out and everything and talking about it on the show. So, Samara, my friend, take care and look forward to chatting with you soon.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, my dear. The beautiful Samara Lynn joining me here on the Tech Zone. I tell you, Samara, she is so smart. And to find out some background about her, of what she used to do before she became a journalist, is truly, truly amazing. If you missed the interview, you can always catch up on video on demand and also audio on demand too. Hey, when we get back on the Tech Zone, we'll be joined by another special guest joining us. We're going to talk about music there, so you don't want to miss that coming up. We'll be right back in 2 and 2 here on the Tech Zone.